the choice you made, you did the best you could with what you had, and you did it out of love, then you're in the right place. And yeah, I love when we get to come and help people in that space.
Welcome to the Heart Hospice podcast, where compassion meets expertise and care goes beyond the expected. Here, we open the door to a world of understanding, where hospice care isn't just for the last moments of life, but is a journey of comfort, support, and dignity. On each episode, we'll dive deep into topics that matter most to patients, families, and communities, from the essentials of hospice care to the incredibly powerful stories that inspire Heart to Heart's exceptional mission. Founded on a commitment to holistic, patient-centered care, Heart to Heart Hospice stands apart as a privately held company that prioritizes compassion over profits, ensuring every patient receives the personalized attention they deserve. So whether you're here to understand more about hospice care, to support a loved one, or to learn about the impactful work behind the scenes, Heart to Heart Hospice is here to support you. Welcome to the Heart Hospice podcast.
Hello, listeners. This is MJ Durkin, the host of the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast. We are really glad that you are here for this episode of the podcast. And as we continue to talk about end-of-life issues, grief, getting through difficult times, supporting our loved ones at these difficult times, and even 13 months after these difficult times happen, we are glad that you are here. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Stephanie Robertson. She is from Indiana, and she is the community education representative. Stephanie Robertson, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me today. I'm very excited about it.
We are happy to talk with you about. We're really going to discuss today. We're going to discuss supporting our loved ones. As they're going through and navigating and taking the journey of end-of-life issues. Talk to us, Stephanie, first about your background. You've been with Heart to Heart Hospice how long?
I've been with Heart to Heart Hospice for 4 years now. I've been a nurse for a lot longer than that. Over 20 years I've been a nurse. Most of that time was spent in the hospital. But I always really loved taking care of people in end-of-life situations and was always drawn to them and knew that at some point in my career, hospice was going to be where I landed. I kind of hit a certain number and realized like it's time to do that now. And so I've been with Heart to Heart now as a nurse for a few years and then recently became the education representative.
Okay, excellent. And was there? I'm curious. Was there an incident or some reason that your heart was drawn to end of life issues?
So I love medicine. And I'm very grateful for it and for the advancements that it has allowed people and for the longevity that it has allowed people. But I started noticing that just because we can do something, I don't think means that we should do something to patients. And when those people or their loved ones, like looking holistically at that person, would decide like maybe this medical treatment isn't the best thing for me holistically, is when I really started being drawn to hospice, because I think that it looks at the whole person. It looks at family dynamics. It looks at their spirituality. It looks at just all of it and supports all of it. And I think it just comes alongside people in those situations and helps support them through all of it, rather than kind of like with the blinders of, I can fix this one medical issue right here, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay. And talk to me. I do want to talk for a second about community education representative. Tell us what kind of people you're doing this education for. You're in hospitals. Tell us the various locations that you go into and the kind of people that you speak to help them understand hospice issues and government regulations and when somebody can go into hospice, and give us, so first of all, what kind of places are you calling on? Hospital? Am I getting hospitals right?
Yeah, that is right. So I
Yeah.
do go into the hospitals and work with case managers in the
Mhm.
hospitals who are trying to help patients and their families find the care that they need and give them the resources that they need. I go into physicians' offices, and that's anywhere from like cardiologists, specialty practices of cardiology and pulmonology, nephrology, um, and then intensive medicine or primary care physicians. So I go into physicians' offices. We work closely with skilled nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities. So we go into nursing homes, go into assisted livings, and work with them, with independent livings. Um, we also go to home care agencies. Personally, I love working with home care agencies. I think that caregivers are in people's homes and they start to see, they see the whole person so well and kind of start seeing some of the like flags that we look for that indicate that maybe hospice is something that we should talk about. Maybe it's time for that level of care. So really from administration and hospital settings to caregivers and everywhere in between.
Excellent, excellent. So a lot of caregivers listen to this podcast. We know that for a fact. We get that feedback, and so we have physicians, we have nurses, we have people in the in every aspect of, you said, of caregiving for people that are either end of life or near end of life, say within like a year or two or three, and they're working with folks that are having incidents more often, coming into the hospital more often. And so one of the things as a community education representative, what you do is you not only help them with knowing when to recommend that somebody's officially ready for hospice. You also help them with understanding the support that comes along. Give us an idea of that support that you educate them on. Like, just give us a running list of all the things that hospice does.
Okay, so hospice provides a nurse in the home, wherever somebody calls home. So whether that's in the home they whatever have been in forever, or it's an assisted living or independent living, or it's a skilled facility, wherever that person is,
Mm.
we send a nurse to evaluate. At baseline, we send somebody twice a week. Sometimes people don't want a nurse that often. Sometimes their symptoms are such that they need a nurse even up to once a day.
Mm.
Um, and they're usually there, a nurse is there for about an hour. Sometimes that's a common misconception that once hospice gets involved, that there's going to be somebody there 24 hours a day, which is part of my role is to make sure that people understand that. And then
Mm.
part of where I'm really passionate about making sure that caregivers have the tools that they need and that they know that they're equipped to do this thing. Um, so, right, we have nurses come in regularly, depending on somebody's symptoms and what they need. We have um, health aides that come in and help with like personal care, so bathing, toileting, showering, however that looks.
Mhm.
We have a social worker that comes in and follows regularly to help make sure that they have all of the resources that they could. So if like housing becomes an issue, if food is an issue, like all of those things, that social worker really takes care of all those things. And then they help with end of life planning too. So, some people are very ready to have the conversation about like what funeral home are we using, and some people are very not okay with that discussion and not ready, even if they're ready for hospice services. So the social worker follows and is ready and is there whenever that person is ready for that conversation. We also have a chaplain, and the chaplain is another one who can kind of come at it's based on what somebody wants to do. And so sometimes the chaplain's going to come and watch a football game with you. And sometimes the chaplain's going to come and say the rosary with you. It just depends on what that person, is connected with. And the chaplain does a wonderful job of meeting that person there. We also have a bereavement coordinator, and that person, uh, focuses, after someone passes, after the family's loved one passes, for 13 months after. You referenced that.
Yeah.
But she also works with pre-bereavement, because anticipatory grief is a thing. And so
Yeah.
oftentimes when somebody comes into hospice services, there's already so much grief. Like, there's grief over, we're not living the life that we thought that we were going to. We're losing autonomy, and there's a lot of things that we're losing. And so there's a lot of anticipatory grief, and the bereavement coordinator helps with that. We also have a volunteer coordinator who helps place, like, maybe the volunteers can't help with anything medically, but they can be that, but they can be with somebody. And sometimes, if the primary caregiver just needs a minute, needs an hour to do something to take care of themselves, and the volunteer can kind of help provide that time for them to be able to do that. So,
And the volunteer is typically what they call an aide, that comes in, or is it just a volunteer that sits and
no, just a
supports?
volunteer,
They're just a
just there to
volunteer, the
sit and to
volunteer.
support. So maybe they're
Yeah.
playing a card game, maybe they're holding a hand, maybe they're
Yeah.
listening to
Yeah.
music together, but nothing medically, or nothing like care wise. So not like potty
Right. So
breaks or
the
anything like
volunteer is
that.
called a volunteer.
That's exactly
Okay,
right.
good. I'm
Yep.
I'm still learning
You got it.
I'm still learning all of the terminology. And
Yeah.
let me say to anybody who's new to the podcast that if you listen to some of our previous episodes, and I would recommend that, I talked about my dad. He passed away when he was 58 from emphysema and cancer. And
Yeah.
our experience with hospice was just, I mean, they were the angels in our lives. And the volunteer, I remember his name was Ken, and he was just a wonderful man. And I remember a lot of times he would sit in the dining room, like off from where my dad would often sit in the living room, and he would just sit there and just be available to kind of help my mom and do stuff for my dad, pick something up or do something. And it was a wonderful experience for him to get to know our family. And he was sweet and wonderful and supportive. And one time we had a meeting there that was with some people from the church, and they prayed over my father. And Ken was just blown away. He was like, I never saw anything like that. It was just amazing.
I love that. I think you hit on something that's really special about hospice, is that we just, um, it's all that we do, right? Is to be in this space with people. And um, I, I love that we just hold that space for people, to let them be and grieve, and maybe not with an agenda to fix the problem, but just to sit and be in it. I think it's
Yeah.
really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. We just we hit it. Be in the space with people to share that grief, to support them. It's hard for people to reach out. It's hard for people to, as you say, I mean, that just even in the pre-bereavement, the ideas of anticipating what's going to happen and life changing,
Yeah.
for not only for the patient, but and that'll give us our bridge to talk about the family and the people that care for that person. But let's talk about taking care of loved ones at the end of life, and let's really focus on, like, why is this important? Why is it something that Heart to Heart Hospice focuses on and talks about and provides all this support? Talk to us about the importance of, like, I think you said to me in our pre-interview of doing this, supporting people, empowering people during this very sacred time.
That's
Uh,
exactly right. Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
yeah,
I do believe it's sacred time. I believe it's like
yeah,
I get to step on holy ground every day.
yeah,
But
yeah,
um, okay, it's important. I mean, nobody's going to not hit this stage, right? But we're just not prepared for it. So often people aren't ready, and
yeah.
there comes this really harsh reality, because
Mm,
um, oftentimes what I find is people think, like, okay, it's time for us to call in hospice. Where are they going to go? Who's going to take care of them? And then it's kind of like well, you might have to be that person who's taking care of them. And they're like, oh, no, 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 like I can't do that. I'm not a nurse. I'm not an aide. I'm not trained to do this thing. And it's like, well, that might be true. The harsh reality of it is it's probably going to be necessary because oftentimes, if I can speak very, I'm going to have to talk about money. I wish I didn't. I wish it wasn't like a thing when you're looking at end of life at all. But the reality is that oftentimes, if people are needing care, like they think, okay, well, now it's time to go to like a hospice house or to go to a nursing facility where they're going to get that care around the clock. But unless that person has Medicare and Medicaid, there's not a payer source to take care of hospice care and room and board in a facility. And that it feels like that can't be true. Honest to goodness, I talk to medical professionals who their brains aren't wrapped around that idea. So there's not a payer source. And so unless you're willing and able to pay for room and board out of your pocket, which adds up very, very quickly, mom or dad or whoever that person is going to have to come home with you. Like somebody's going to have to take care of them. And so that's where it becomes really important for people to know, like, what resources are there then? Because like, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to, like it or not, ready or not, here it comes for you. And there is not necessarily like this rule book that we've been given. So, yeah, that's where I think hospice comes in is so important to reference and to be able to pull from, because you're going to need, it is like an all hands on deck type of time. So, yeah.
Well, what occurs to me is that look, I mean, given the choice, I think, all 8 billion humans on the planet would rather avoid pain, grief,
True.
crying, struggle,
True. Yes.
arguments, pressure, money issues, seeing someone, decline massively, be in pain. I mean, that's a huge
Yep.
part of this is seeing
Yep.
people in pain. I remember my final conversation with my dad, eye to eye while he was, kind of hunched over on the couch and laying, kind of laying with his head on a tray table. I said, do you feel like, it's time for you to die? And he said, yes. And he said to me, and he said, I'm in so much pain, Michael. I want to go. And, I mean, look, truth be told, that's 35 years ago, it's
Wow.
still making my eyes moist,
Yeah.
because my
Sure.
dad was an awesome dad. And, and that takes a lot of emotional bravery
Yeah, it
to
does.
look at your loved one, someone who raised you or whatever, and say, is it time to go? My mother said, I can't have that conversation with him. You have to have it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
Well, I think you touched something very owie there too, is that, you said I had an awesome father. And
Hmm.
what a blessing. What a
Hmm.
blessing. And there are plenty of people who are entering this time who are having to bring mom or dad home who that is not their experience, right? They're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
sitting there like, oh my goodness gracious, you took such great care of me as I was growing up and you met me right where I was and gave me all the support and love and kindness and all the things that I needed. And let me do the same
yeah,
for
yeah,
you. Oftentimes,
yeah.
people are entering that time like, holy cow,
Wow.
I've
Yeah,
been in therapy for the last
yeah,
20
yeah,
years because of the things that you did to me. And now you're telling me that at this time when they're gonna like suck all of my resources and time and energy and love and care, and for what, because
yeah, yeah,
they didn't pour this thing into me. And so I mean, that's real, that there's some
yeah,
reality for you,
yeah,
and so I would just say that forgiveness is something that we get to talk about. I get to talk about a good amount too, because um, yeah, you might be bringing dad home, and you have plenty of things to say to dad, and it's just not time. and that dad's in a lot of pain, and you're going to have to take care of that, and you're going to have to get to a really deep place inside of you, to be able to pull from that and do that. And again, where it's really important that you have all the support around you, because it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot.
Yeah. Well, you
That
just
fair?
taught me you just taught me something, which is really
Yeah.
good. Thank you,
Okay.
Stephanie, because perspective is everything, right?
Yeah.
And so you're right. I mean, I never thought of, what if you had really bad feelings, like you said, 20 years in therapy.
Uh-huh.
I never thought of that. Although let me tell you that as wonderful as my parents were, there was one night when I was called there in an ice storm in Connecticut and was screaming at the both of them to cut it out and to act like adults.
Wow.
And I
Right.
realized standing there in their living room, which I grew up in as a little, I started there as a 5-year-old kid, as I'm yelling at
Yeah.
them in their respective side by side chairs, in the living room. I'm screaming at them. I'm yelling, "This is
Yeah.
the time for loving. This is not the time for what you guys are doing."
Whatever you're doing.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you guys are really screwing it up. And
Yeah.
so I had to put them in their place, and I had to tell them that the things they were demanding were not going to happen. And then I had to drive
Mhm.
home 30 minutes in a ice storm to my
Oh
family
my goodness
and
gracious.
make sure I didn't kill myself. And uh,
Yeah.
so it's not all look, it's not all peaches and cream, even if you had great
It is
parents,
not. It
right?
is not. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. I think,
yeah,
and so sometimes, so while I'm saying sometimes people are going to have to take their loved one home and provide that
mm,
care,
mm,
and they feel like they're under equipped and not ready to do the thing. I think there's also the time where somebody is like going to have to go to a skilled nursing facility in
mhm,
order to receive the care that they need, because it's a lot of work to take care of someone at end of life, but it's
mhm,
a lot of work. And sometimes the safest place and the best place for them is that skilled nursing facility. And so I think there's so much guilt that people come into hospice with, like I hear, oh, I wish we would have called you sooner. And then I hear, oh, maybe we're calling you too soon. So like on either end of the spectrum, people feel bad,
mhm,
kind of like
mhm.
maybe I'm not
Yeah,
doing the right thing.
yeah, yeah.
And then often it's like I'm almost having to fight this promise, not fight, but just like come alongside them, because they've made this promise to mom and dad, or mom and dad made me swear I would never put them in a nursing home, right?
Right, right.
They would I ever do that. And if I
Mhm.
could like scream from the rooftops something like, please don't put that on your children or on your loved ones, because you have no idea what that end is going to look like. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just the best place to be. Sometimes, not always, it's not always feasible. It's just this is where it gets hard, and where you need
Mm,
people to walk alongside you who have like been in it all the time, because it's not black and white. It's very gray. Like the answer, like, do they need to go home? Do they need to go to a facility? And sometimes people kind of look at taking care of their loved ones at end of life, I think, through rose-colored glasses, like it's
yeah,
romanticized a little bit.
yeah,
And then the reality is like all the bodily functions are still working. And
yeah,
sometimes we're
yeah,
not equipped to take care of those things. And
yeah, yeah.
sometimes there's extra care that's needed. So it's just, um, yeah, the reality and the practicalities of it require a lot of help. So
Yeah. Well, I want to. I've mentioned this in other podcasts, and I think it's pertinent. Is that my mom, who passed away at 73,
mm,
she had had a stroke, and she was a quadriplegic in a skilled nursing
wow,
facility,
sure,
and and my sister and I, our goal was to bring our mom back home,
mm,
and we wanted to do that, and we wanted to do that for her, and we were with it, and we consulted with an elder care lawyer
sure,
who was referred to us, which I highly recommend
yes,
people consulting with
yes,
people that specialize in this, because he sat down with us and he was like, look, I'm going to just tell you something really straight out. Your mom's in a facility that I know, we all know, it's known in in our community as being a very clean, very wonderful place to be. He said, if you take her out of there, you're going to have a heck of a time getting her back in there. He says,
Yeah.
he goes, you're in there now. And he goes, and you should, this plan to
Count your
bring her
blessings,
home,
huh?
he
Mm-hmm.
said, your plan to bring her
Yeah.
home is a little insane. Um,
Yeah.
and he was right. He was
Yeah.
completely right. My sister and I talked about it, and we were like, yeah, she's going to stay there. And she did, about 11 months later, or
Mm.
so, she ended her life in her sleep peacefully, wonderfully, and it was great. But
Beautiful.
boy, I can't recommend enough to get that outside viewpoint from the
Yeah.
person who knows this industry. I mean, who
Yeah.
knows the ins and outs
Well,
of this, right?
and whose emotions aren't tied to the thing too, right?
Yeah,
Their
yeah,
emotions aren't tied
yeah,
to it. Like, but this is my mom, and right, can I do this to her? Yeah,
yeah,
right. You need
yeah,
that sometimes. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Very helpful.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, give us some ideas of how we can take care of our loved ones, and some tips on things that we can do in maybe bringing hospice into the picture, and working with hospice. I don't even think that people realize how much, like you mentioned, the chaplain, you mentioned,
Yeah.
the social worker. These people can be angels. Talk to us about how they, specifically how they support.
Yeah, so I'd like to talk about how they get involved
Yeah,
because
please.
I
Yeah.
think that so often people think that we have to wait for our physician to tell us it's time, you know what, it's time for hospice.
Right.
And the reality is that's not how it always works. Like
Mhm.
our physicians, their focus, their focus is on your medical problem. That's their job, is to focus on
Right.
their medical problem, and their job is to fix that medical problem, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like while people think like I need my doctor to tell me it's time for hospice. Maybe this is the end times. Maybe this is the end. Maybe this is an end of life scenario. That's not their focus. And I just I'm actually, so I'm trained as an end of life doula as well, and I took that those courses because the way that they approach end of life is just very human. Like we don't need a physician to tell us that we're dying. We don't
Mhm.
need a physician to tell us we're going to die. We all know that that time is coming and that it's going to happen. So I think that the thing to know is that we can like we can make that referral to hospice. We can ask for that help. We don't have to wait for our physician to say that. And know that there's going to be times where your physician is like, but I can still help. And it's like, well, then it's up to us to decide whether that's what we want or not. Because their job isn't to look at all of you. It's just
Mhm.
not.
Right.
Their job is to look at this medical diagnosis and how we can fix that. And so I think to that end of like, how do we get the help is that we advocate for it for ourselves and for our loved ones, knowing
Mhm.
that that help is there. And so, we Heart to Heart, and probably plenty of hospices, but Heart to Heart has plenty of tools that help kind of recognize like these are flags. Like if we start seeing these things, like maybe it's time to call hospice and sit down and talk about like, do we qualify? Like could
Right.
we get this help? And to recognize that we're not just there for, when somebody's not even conscious anymore or the end is like absolutely imminent. We're there for that whole like end of life phase, or yeah, that when that level of care is needed.
Hmm. Yeah. Really well said. Very, very well said. And I think that, and so, tell us some of the activators that would activate somebody to, to know when they should reach out to hospice and get some advice, or
Hmm.
talk to a social worker, or talk to a chaplain, or start the
An
process. Because
attorney,
I
yeah.
like, or an attorney, or
Hmm.
find out who the resources are, and give us like
Hmm.
the activators. I know that one of them is that if your loved one keeps ending up in the hospital over and over again,
Yep.
and it becomes, you think it's going to be a long recovery, but they don't bounce back, and you have to bring them in again. It used to be once a year in the hospital. Now it's once every 6 months. Now it's looking
Right.
like every 3 months. Like, is
Yeah.
that an activator that activates people to want to should call hospice and say, hey, I'm thinking something's going wrong here. I'd like some support.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So repeated hospitalizations
Yeah.
where it's like, well, yep, we can treat your COPD flare up again. Here's the steroids, here's the antibiotics, here's let's fix it. And now it's time to go home. And
Right.
then more and more frequently, we're having to go back for that. And then the other piece of that is like that person maybe is like, I, I don't want to come back to the hospital anymore. I don't want to have to do that anymore. Um, so it's not like there's this like gold standard of like, okay, well, if you've been in the hospital every 6 weeks for the last however often, but like if it is increasing and if they're kind of starting to be like, I don't really want to do this, that's a big one. Someone who's losing weight and, maybe just not eating as much. I guess maybe I just want to touch on this a second is that like our bodies naturally stop like wanting food. Like it naturally starts kind of falling off. Um, and then people often are like we told by their loved one, like, you need to eat, mom, you need to eat, you need to eat.
Yeah.
And if you're starting to hear and say those things, it might be kind of a trigger to be like, or is your body just naturally starting to say, maybe I'm not, maybe I don't need to, maybe I'm trying to do something else, you know?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So like losing weight, that's a big one. And sometimes, if you're not even there for when that is eating, so maybe you don't see them eating, but like their clothes are starting to get looser, like their glasses like looser, their dentures aren't fitting right. Like might just be kind of a trigger to be like,
Yeah.
what's going on? More and more frequent falls.
Mm.
That's an indicator as well.
Yeah.
um, Wounds that we just can't seem to heal. I'll touch on that a second, like in regards to skilled nursing facilities a second, only because it
I want
can
to say
be.
that again. It got kind of bonked out by
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
internet gods.
Oh,
Wounds, wounds,
wounds,
wounds
wounds.
that don't seem to heal. Go ahead,
Yes,
talk about
wounds
that.
that don't seem to heal
Yeah, yeah,
because in order for wounds to heal, there need to be a lot of things in place, like activity level, protein intake, and if mom's living on Twinkies. Like it's not going to happen.
right.
And so sometimes, especially like in skilled nursing facilities, I think sometimes they get this bad rep of like they get these sores and we have to be careful with those things and make sure that people are getting the care that they need. But like oftentimes I think maybe it's more of a sign like, is your body is just slowing down? Like is that what it is? And we need more help. So,
Right.
yeah, the hospitalizations, the falls, the weight loss, those are all pretty like easy indicators. And then if somebody is needing more help with their what we would call ADLs, so their activities of daily living, like are they
You
just
call them
needing
ADLs?
ADLs,
Okay.
activities of daily living?
Yeah.
That's
Good.
like the nursing term for it.
Right.
Um, so if they're needing more and more help to go to the bathroom, more help to get a shower, more help to eat, to get their food, that's another just kind of a trigger for us. Like I'm
Mm.
not saying it necessarily is, but like,
Right. Right.
but maybe it's worth a conversation of like, could we help? Could we come alongside and help? So.
Right. Right. So, and are there any things that that you would say to the physicians and the nurses and the other folks that are what did you call them? You called them skilled. What was the term you used for them?
Oh, like skilled nursing facilities
Skilled
or
nursing
skilled?
or caregivers, right?
Oh,
You call them.
caregivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, caregivers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so caregivers covers all of the people I'm mentioning, right? Nurses, doctors, is that true?
Yeah, I would say so. And even
Yeah,
like non-medical caregivers, I
yeah.
would say. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of non-medical caregiving companies that come in
Hmm.
and help with like some housekeeping, some light shopping, some yeah, just grooming kind of things. Those non-medical caregivers.
Right.
There's plenty of those kinds of companies around. Um, they really are like the eyes and ears, like day in and day out of the people. Sometimes even like meal volunteers, like people who bring
Yeah.
in meals, like they'll start to be like, oh, they're not coming to the door as quick. They're not,
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
kinds of people. They're able to see those changes because they see them every day. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, a lot of doctors and nurses
Mhm.
listen to this podcast.
Sure.
Tell us what the education might be, or what you might recommend for the medical folks to look for when it's time to make that referral.
It can be a hard one, I think, because there's such this like stigma around hospice care that it's giving up.
Yes.
And our nurses and our physicians, I think, even can look at it in that way still. And they can say things like, oh, well, there's nothing else we can do, so it's time for hospice,
Mm,
or yeah, well, don't give up, don't give up. And I guess I would just encourage them to see it as not giving up on their patient. Like this isn't giving up on them. This isn't failing them. This isn't. This is allowing them to be human. You and I just talked about like we're all
yeah.
human,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
like this is coming, and so for our nurses and physicians to really embrace, I guess, the humanity of it and meet that person where they're at, looking at the
Mm,
whole thing and not taking it as a personal, like you're giving up on them. But
mm,
I think it's actually can be one of the kindest, one of the kindest referrals to make,
mm, mm.
recognizing that they need so much help in all of the areas of life.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I guess to see it as that, like calling in all the troops and offering all the help that can be given. Not giving up. It's not giving up. It's not giving up. Um, but surrounding, I guess, and helping them
Oh, it's
totally.
surrounding them with all the support that
Yeah,
they've you know they don't teach a class on this in high school.
that's right.
They got home ec,
That's
maybe
right.
they got wood shop, maybe metal shop. There's no
Maybe.
death
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah,
You know.
there's not. And I'm so glad you used that reference because sometimes I'll say, and like, they're often like, there's somebody who can be a caregiver usually within a family. And I liken it to like some men are just kind of handy. And I don't mean to be like stereotypical, but like, I mean, and because there's women too who do the thing, but like, there's men who are just a little more handy, right? Like, they're
Sure.
just like, I'll fix the thing, I can do this. And a lot of
Yeah.
times there's a family member who's like, okay, I can do this. And they're just a little bit more naturally inclined to do that thing.
Mhm.
So I guess kind of embrace it, I'll let it embrace it and do it if that's what you feel called to do. So,
Well,
yeah.
a lot of times in my case, I'm the firstborn, right?
Ah, yes.
So the firstborns often are used to, I mean, I used to take care,
Figuring it out.
I used to protect my brother on the,
Hmm.
on the playground, right, and at
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
and of course, my sister was 5 years younger, so my brother was 2 years younger, so I protected them, I took care of them, I watched out for
Yeah.
them. It's a natural role, so they both
Yeah.
looked to me, and we're like,
Yes.
okay, MJ, Michael, what are we gonna do,
Yep.
and
I do know. Yeah. I get it.
you
I
do know.
get that. I'm an oldest too. I feel you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So.
Everybody thinks the firstborn has it so easy, Oh, they got all the pictures of you, no pictures of
Uh-huh,
me.
uh-huh.
I'm the fifthborn. They got no pictures of me. Yeah. So,
Funny.
as we Stephanie, really, really great conversation. Any final tips that we would give folks about caring for their loved ones at the end of life?
I think to recognize, I touched on this a second, that people enter into this time sometimes with a lot of guilt, like feeling bad,
Hmm.
like they're giving up. And they
Yeah.
literally maybe were even told that, right? Like, don't give
Right.
up. You're giving up. Don't give up. And uh, I guess what I would what I often say to people in that time is like, you made whatever choice you've made, whatever choice you've made, you did it because you loved them. Did
Mm.
you do it because you loved them?
Right. Right.
then you're ending up in the right spot. I believe that fully. And then I do I think too, there's often this thought that like, oh, it's with hospice, and so we're going to stop everything, and everything's done, and we're not going to treat anything. Here's your morphine, and there's like nothing else to it. But like, it's not like that. It's just not. And if you want to have certain treatments, we're going to absolutely help you do those things. And so, yeah, I guess I want people to know whenever they're calling hospice, again, like you're doing it because you love and you care for your loved one or this person that you've been called to take care of for whatever reason, then you're in the right place. Then you're in the right place. I think grief is hard enough. And unfortunately, oftentimes people like enter into that grief, like carrying a lot of guilt for the choices that they made or for whatever. And so that's just it. The choice you made, you did the best you could with what you had, and you did it out of love, then you're in the right place. And yeah, I love when we get to come and help people in that space. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up because, guilt and regret, I often say that guilt and regret are the ghosts that dance at the end of the bed, at 2 a.m.
That's right. I think that's right. I think that's right.
They keep you awake and,
Yeah.
they torment you. My former wife and I, we lost a baby at 9 months and 2 weeks.
Oh my.
And so she was stillborn
How
at 9 months
awful.
and 2 weeks. And so the grieving, of course, was pretty massive after that. And I remember a wonderful counselor who was working with us, and we were opening up. We were in kind of like a group of people that were sharing grief. So we were doing the
Yeah.
right thing. We didn't know we were doing the right
Yes.
things, but we were with a group of people that were sharing their losses. And he's a wonderful man named Barry Vassell. And the first thing he said to us, he brought us together, and he had his hands around us and kind of in a hug. And he said, the first thing I need to know is, do you have any guilt? He said, because we have to deal with guilt first. Do you feel like you did anything wrong? Do you feel guilty that you didn't go in earlier to have the birth? And we were both very clean on that. We were like, no, we believe that this happened for a reason. We don't know what the reason is yet, but no, there's no guilt. And he said, okay, good. Then we can go to the next step.
I see. Yeah.
And I will never forget him saying, like, and I remember tuning in, like going, do I have it? No, I don't have any guilt. I
You
didn't do
don't.
this. I didn't make a
Yeah.
mistake. It was just
Yeah.
for some reason it's the will, it's God's will, and it's what's happened, and now the acceptance and everything that has to come along with this has to come along with it. But if you can forgive yourself for guilt, if you can dissolve that guilt, if you can speak that guilt out, if you can emote it out, if you can let it go, let
Yeah.
it go, right? Because that's
Yeah.
that's the past. Can't do anything about it. Okay, get rid of the guilt and move on from there. I think you're much better off.
I think it's important to recognize though, because so
Yeah.
I'm glad that he asked you it, right? It doesn't go
Yeah.
away by acting like it's not there. Wounds don't heal by saying that they're not there. So it's one of those that you got to look at and touch. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm writing now. Wounds
Oh,
don't heal. Wounds don't heal by saying that they're not there.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Wounds
yeah,
don't heal by saying I'm writing it all down because I'll forget it. By saying they're not there. Oh, that's a that's a
right.
that's a genius line, Stephanie
Is it? Well,
Robertson.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it's biblical.
I
So yeah, it
I'm
probably should be. But
well, I'm
yeah.
not sure about that. I don't know, but
Okay.
anyway, uh, what a great back and forth and a great
It
conversation.
is.
Really, really appreciate you being here on the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast. Thank you.
Me too. Yeah. Thank
Thanks.
you for your time.
Thank you. So, to all of our listeners, let us say that we so appreciate you listening. And can I make a recommendation? This podcast is provided. It's free of charge, I guess. Well, so are all podcasts, public podcasts, MJ. So no big deal. No, actually, that's not true. There are podcasts that you pay to. There's a paywall for the podcast. So, if I could make a recommendation, if you're in the medical profession, please, look for those three little buttons on the podcast, whether it be on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and hit the share button and share it to your colleagues, to other nurses, to other doctors, to other medical professionals, to physicians assistants, people that are involved with patients, especially those that are in the end of life, more to the end of life business, working with those folks. Please send it to people that you know that are hurting, that are facing these issues, and talk about it to other folks. Also, if you would give us a 5-star rating, and if I could really ask you to go out of your comfort zone, like please write a review on any of the podcast services if they allow you to write a review, and if you received any help from the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast. Also, please give that review, and maybe you have to Google how to write a review. It's not that easy to figure it out sometimes. And some podcasts don't let you, some services don't let you write a review, but Apple lets you review. And Pocket Cast lets you review. There's a million of them. I want also all of our listeners to understand that you can go on the Heart to Heart Hospice website, and you can locate Heart to Heart Hospice in Indiana, in Texas, in Michigan, and in Oklahoma. And you can find a number there to call in those 4 states where Heart to Heart Hospice is, and just ask for information. Ask to connect with a social worker. Ask for a referral to an elder law attorney. Anything that you need that relates to end-of-life issues or questions, start with Heart to Heart Hospice. They'll answer questions. They'll give you free assistance. They'll point you in the right direction. All they want to do at Heart to Heart Hospice is to help and assist you in any way, at whatever level you're at. They want to help you with whatever level you're at. Am I right, Stephanie?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Meeting people right where they are. Mm-hmm.
Meeting people right where they are. Yep. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast.
That concludes this episode of the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast. Be sure to check back regularly for new episodes and get connected to our guiding principles and our commitment to patient-centered care. We'll see you on the next episode.